Hey, if you run a private practice and your entire referral strategy is to do a good job and hope that everyone tells their friends, that is not a system. And so if you stick with me, I would like to show you a very simple referral process that you and your team can run every week to create that steady streamline of referrals that you need to grow your business. If you are a US-based private practice owner, or maybe you're a clinic director, and you have about 1 to 10 locations, and if new patients mainly come from random word of mouth and maybe a handful of providers, this video is going to be for you. And so if you're like most practice owners, you've got a lot of patients really love us. A lot of people really love us, but your new patient volume is up and down, and there's no consistent, trackable referral flow from patients or providers. I've been there, and I know the stress that can cause any healthcare leader that's trying to run the practice. And so by the end of this video, I'm going to give you a very simple 3-part referral system that you and your team can follow. Okay, and so the 3-part system is, number 1, it's going to be a patient referral ask that is built within your current flow. Number 2 is a simple provider touchpoint rhythm that you and your team can follow. And then number 3 is a 1-page referral tracker that you and your team can review every week. Okay, so the first problem is that your patients love you, but you never actually ask for referrals from them in a structured way. And so as a result, referrals are rare, and maybe they're random instead of very steady and predictable. And so we fix that in our practice with the patient referral moment. Okay. And so how do you do that? Step 1 is you're going to pick 1 or 2 points within the plan of care where you and your team will ask that patient for a referral. And that might be, maybe it's a midpoint win, or it could be, maybe it's at the graduation mark, whenever you discharge. The key is that it's planned and it's not based on who remembers for the week. Step 2 is that you got to build a very simple script that you and your team can follow. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but the point is that it's built and it can be studied and even role played with your team. All right. So it could sound something like, hey, if you have any friends or family that are dealing with the same type of low back pain that you came in with, we'd love an opportunity to help them too. Is there anyone that you'd like us to maybe reach out to, or that maybe you'd like to share our business card with? Here's a business card, right? And so the point is that's it. That's it. It's simple, right? And so you're not begging people for referrals. You're just opening the door and making it very easy for them to stop and think of someone that could benefit from the services that you've offered. And then step 3 is you give them some type of tool, right? And what I've seen work is you could give them a very small referral card, right? Or it could be a simple QR code that goes straight to maybe a Google form or a landing page where patients can opt in and put their name and information, right? The more friction that you can remove from that process for them, the more likely that patient and that person that they're referring to you is going to take action, right? And so you're giving them that tool where it's very easy. Click the link, put your name in, right? So what does a real life example of that maybe look like, right? So let's say you're a physical therapist and a patient just finished their plan of care. And so maybe right now it's a high five to them and a free t-shirt and a goodbye. I've seen a lot of people use the graduation certificates. Maybe they do a photo, right? But with an actual referral moment that's built into the process that you and your team practice, the clinician can actually say the script and hand them 2 cards with QR codes and a process that they can use to refer somebody. Let's say you and your team can get 1 or 2 referrals a week from that moment, multiplied across your entire organization. It becomes a very significant and real growth channel for you and your business. And it's very doable, right? So it's a very low-hanging fruit. And so all you have to do is implement that system. One thing that is important to know about that is you don't have to script out every word perfectly, right? So like even with this video, like I'm following a script, but it doesn't have to be word for word, right? You just need to have that framework and have every clinician have a very consistent moment and a consistent ask for your patients with a simple, consistent tool that's in their hands, right? And so like if you give them that flow and, obviously you're going to give them some boundaries, but you can give them room to play within those boundaries so that your team can find their own words and their own cadence and adjust the process to meet the needs of your clinician and the patient, right? And so it's just about giving your team the framework. And what will happen is you'll start to see that there will be people on your team who actually will be really good at this, and there'll be people on your team that won't. Okay, so that's your internal process. Next, the next big idea for you, right, is going to be the provider referrals. All right, so most clinics, they might do 1 or 2 drop-ins to maybe physicians or referral partners with maybe some donuts or some coffee. And then they go back and they wonder why the patients aren't just flowing in, right? And so what we can do with this section of time is help you build a very simple, I like to call it the 2-2-1 rhythm, right? And so I like to run this every month for a very small list of key providers that are making the big impact for you and your business. Okay. So what does that look like? Step 1 is you want to identify your top 10 providers. These are going to be referral partners, right? That could be, primary care physicians. It could be surgeons or nurse practitioners or pediatricians, OBGYN. It depends on what type of practice that you have, right? And so whoever fits your niche, who are the key providers that are seeing the patients that you want to treat before they see you, right? And the key there is that you want to focus on the ones who ideally have already referred a bit to you or clearly should be referring to you. It doesn't have to be every single provider in town, right? Who are the people that are ideal referral partners for you? Okay, that's step 1. Step 2 is going to be that every month you're going to aim for 2-2-1. And so with each of those top 10, you do 2 helpful touches with them. So that might be a brief, like it could be a short fax that you send them, or it could be an email, or it could be a progress note with an extra love letter attached to it, or something like that, with maybe some outcome summaries, or it could even be a short resource that you could give to help them with their patients, right? It could be home exercise programs or diagnostic tools that you find useful. Okay, so that's the first 2. You're going to do 2 personal touches, all right? That could be a simple handwritten thank you note. It could be a thank you for any referrals that they sent you in the past, or it could be a short check-in call, right? It could, you just pick up the phone and say, hey, Dr. Smith, just wanted to thank you for sending over Mrs. Jones. Here's how she's doing. She's doing great. Thank you for being an amazing referral partner. The point is, it's a personal touch from you or your team, okay? And then lastly, you're going to do one in-person or virtual touch with that provider. All right. So that could be a very short lunch and learn, could be a workshop, could be a quick coffee visit, could be a 15-minute Zoom that you do to catch up and maybe you can review some outcomes with your patients or answer any questions that they have about how you actually manage patients to make sure that you're aligning on the work that you're doing together. Okay. So that's the 2-2-1 framework that I have found most useful. And when you kind of do the work of identifying that top 10 list, it makes it a lot more manageable, right? Because if you have 150 referral partners, it can be overwhelming and you're scattered. But if you focus on the top 10 and really focus on nurturing them, you can make a real difference. So what does that look like? It could, and so if you look at, maybe you have a monthly calendar. It could be a monthly calendar that you use to manage all of your referral partners. Okay. Dr. Smith might get, so let's say week 1, they might get a thank you note from you, right? Week 2, they get an outcomes email about a few of their patients that they've referred over. Week 3, they get a 5-minute call from you. And week 4, they get a quick in-person drop-in or a short Zoom visit from you or your team. And so that's very high. That's high touch point. That's high volume touch point for the people that matter, right? And so this isn't about you being a full-time sales rep or anything weird like that. It's about just building a very consistent, light touch process that keeps you top of mind and that shows that you take great care of their patients. Right, which is exactly what referral partners usually want. And so you can have your front desk or a virtual assistant handle a lot of the logistics around that, right? They can do the outreach. They can do a lot of that for you, right? And so they can print the notes. They can schedule the calls. They can track, they can track who got the touches for the month, right? And so your job as the owner or as the director is to simply show up for the relationship parts that only you can do. All of the stuff on the back end that requires a little bit of grit and administrative burden, you can delegate that to your team, right? Here's the third piece. If you don't track referrals, you really don't know what's working, right? And more importantly, you can't double down on what's working and you can't fix what's not working because you're not tracking it, right? And so the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to build just a very simple one-page referral tracker for you and your team to follow, right? And so you can make a very simple spreadsheet and your column, I'm a spreadsheet guy, right? Your columns can be, like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, right? And your rows, kind of the down part, are going to be patients, providers, online/other, right? And so every week you can have your admin or your front desk or your VA log every week how many new patients came in from specific patients, right? How many patients came in from specific providers, and how many patients came in from some online resource or some type of other, maybe it's a workshop, right? And so you're just tracking that week by week. Another optional but powerful add-on is that you can list your top 3 referring patients on that sheet and your top 3 referring providers for that period of time. And so what that will give you is a very clear list of people to thank each month. Those are your VIP people. Then you do a very simple 10-minute weekly review with yourself and anybody that's helping you with the marketing, right? And you're asking yourself, which sources are growing, which referral sources are growing, which sources are dropping or trending down, and who should we thank or visit or check in with this week. Very short and sweet 10-minute process. And so an example of that might look like, let's say you see, provider A sending steady referrals week over week. Provider B is starting to drop off. Okay. And so for the next 90 days, you can run your 2-2-1 rhythm with them. You can run it harder on provider B because they're the people you're trying to rescue, right? Often, what we find is that the volume comes back simply because you re-engage the relationship at a higher capacity, right? And so people want to send you referrals most of the time. They just need to be reminded. The one thing that's really important, listen, I have a pretty solid practice and we still don't use like fancy CRMs. You don't need fancy high-tech gear or a fancy CRM. All you need to do this is a basic sheet that you can actually look at every week. That will beat every time. That will beat any type of complex report that you never open. And so the key here is like keep it very simple and don't try to make it more complicated than it needs to be, right? The goal is to simply make referrals visible so that you and your team can manage them on purpose instead of hoping and praying, right? Because if you're managing them on purpose, then you're being the designer of your outcomes as opposed to being the victim of your outcomes. And when you're in your team in the driver's seat, that's where owners start to win. So one warning that's really worth considering. I made this mistake. So don't make this mistake. If you treat your referral partners as a one-time campaign, your team will drop it the second things feel awkward or busy to them. So the point is that this has to become part of your culture and not just kind of a script of the month, right? So follow through is really important. You have to be, as the owner, have to be the person that drives consistent follow through week after week after week. So if you try to do this as a blast, then your team is going to fall off, right? You have to follow up every single week. That's part of running a practice. And it's through the repetition and through your commitment that you model that will show your team how to start really actually being consistent with it, if that makes sense. Okay. So don't try to roll this out as a flashy new thing of the week and have commit to it. Okay. So you want to tie referrals to your mission, right? Tie referrals to the mission, the purpose, and the values of your company. What you want to do is you want to tie referrals to your mission, your vision, and your values. Okay. So, you want to have some language that describes something like, we help more people in our community when we make it easy for people to refer to us, right? And that's the mission, right? We help more people when we make it easy for our referral partners to refer to us. And you're reminding your team of that is really, really key. And so you don't want this to be about chasing numbers, right? You want to instead try to frame this in a way of like, this is how we extend the impact of the care that we already provide our people, right? And so make this about a calling with your team and not just about a spreadsheet. And so during your weekly team meeting, celebrate the wins, like literally celebrate the wins, right? Shout out the patients or the providers who are actually referring, like celebrate them with your team. And also celebrate the team members who remember to ask for those referrals and send out the thank yous and do the work, right? The positive reinforcement that you give in public makes it, it's part of the thing that makes the behavior stick, right? And so celebrate in public. If you start celebrating the behaviors that you want, you'll start to build a culture around those behaviors, if that makes sense. So another thing that I've found really helpful is to add a very simple line to your new patient paperwork. Or it could be, maybe it's, if you have any other paperwork that your patients have to fill out along their plan of care, you add a simple line. And it says something like, the highest compliment that you can give us is referring somebody that you care about. And so over time, referrals will stop feeling salesy and start feeling like a natural extension of good care. And so what will happen is, if remain committed to this, over time, referrals will stop feeling salesy and they'll start feeling more like a natural extension of good quality care that you provide, not just your patients, but your community as well. And so you're just making it normal to talk about who else can you help, right? And believe me, I know what it feels like, because in the beginning, when I tried to do this, I felt weird about it because it's a new thing. And so lean into that a little bit and start remaining consistent to the behaviors that you can, and you'll start to push your team in that direction. Okay, quick recap before we close. Step 1 is to create the patient referral moment with a very simple script and a simple card or a QR code at key touch points and visits for your patients. Step 2 is to run a provider 2-2-1 rhythm with your top 10 providers every single month. And step 3 is to use a one-page referral tracker, very simple, that you can review every week so that you and your team can know who to thank and where to focus your energy and efforts. Keep the ball moving. A little bit of a plug, if you made it this far, if you want help building systems like this across your practice, we help owners with referrals, operations, leadership. That's exactly what we do inside of the Private Practice Owners Club. This isn't like a weird sales pitch. Like, if it makes sense, you can check it out. If not, we'll see you on the next video, right? But we have coaching programs, we have mastermind programs specifically for private practice owners who want to have profitable growth in their business. They want better systems, and maybe you even want a life outside of your practice. So make sure you check out below. There's going to be some links to learn about what we do. And if it makes sense, you can jump on a call with our team and we can see if it's a good fit. All right, that's it, guys. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick your patient referral moment. You're going to write the script, and you're going to start tracking referrals with your team every week. If you do that, you'll be extremely surprised at how fast random word of mouth can turn into a real system that drives growth for you and your business. I'm cheering for you, and we'll see you on the next one.